So in a hospital, for example, you are 75% more likely to get an infection than you would at home birth. You are much more likely to have a postpartum hemorrhage, you are much more likely to have a cesarean, you are much more likely to have an instrumental birth, you are less likely to breastfeed.
She just asked the question, why are you at the same hospital that you had your C-section at?
It's the only time we go to hospital when we're not ill. It's around 70% chance that you should be able to have a vaginal birth after cesarean, 90% if you've had a vaginal birth before, yet most London hospitals are around 20-30% max for VBACs.
I like this.
So it's quite good.
Hey Deku fam!
Hey, Deku fam.
Welcome back to our channel.
Welcome back.
We're back with another video, and in this video we're talking about how we're preparing for our vaginal birth after a C-section.
VBAC.
VBAC.
But we're doing HBAC.
Oh yeah, HBAC. We're actually doing a home birth after a C-section. And if you've checked out our previous videos, you'll understand why we've got to this position. But in this video, we really want to talk about the how we're preparing. And the main thing that we've done differently that has actually led to a whole host of different decisions is booking a doula. Hi, Carly.
The role of a doula has changed, I'd say, as you know, doulas have been supporting women since time began.
Yeah.
It's generally been a very female thing. But I think the role of a doula in where we are now, in terms of maternity and birth, has changed a lot. So I think what you've got is strength in numbers. When your basic mammalian needs are privacy and safety, having somebody there who works for you, who is non-biased, enables you to feel that so much more. But there is actual research around having that extra person, that birth support, that continuous support, because what we lack now, and certainly sadly in our kind of maternity services, is that continuity of care. And that is what can make a difference. So doula means you're less likely to have pharmaceutical pain relief. It means you're more likely to feel positive after the birth. There's less instances of postnatal depression. You're more likely to breastfeed for longer. You're less likely to have a cesarean. You're more likely to have a shorter labour. I think that just an inner kind of sort of confidence comes from having somebody there who is a non-medical birth support, but that's a good thing. It's someone who's there to have your back, to make sure your voice is heard, that your birth wishes are met, who can advocate for you if you want them to, but also sort of hopefully teach you and educate you enough in that process that you're happy to advocate for yourselves, which you've done beautifully so far.
So it's been actually game-changing having our doula. We booked her from the second trimester, and since then there have been a host of different decisions that we've made that has led us to now having a home birth after a C-section. So in this video, we have actually had some conversations with her on some key questions, topics that are really key that we think would actually benefit an audience, and hopefully it gives you an insight into how we're prepared for our vaginal birth.
So these are the 5 ways that we're preparing for our home birth after C-section.
Okay, so one way that we're preparing for our HBAC is by getting educated.
Yeah, so since we had our C-section the first time, we felt like it wasn't really necessary. So we've been going on our journey just to continue to understand the whole process, etc., what we can do differently to have a vaginal birth. And our doula has really accelerated our growth and our understanding, and especially what she's been able to support us with is just emotional support, because our families haven't really been that forthcoming or supportive around that process, because it's a very controversial subject.
As we're sharing with family, with friends, with even medical professions, it's just seen as something that's a bit controversial. Some people are happy, minimal people are happy for us. Others are just concerned, worried, why are you doing it this way? Why is it seen in that way?
Why is it so controversial?
Yeah, why is it so controversial?
Well, I think it's twofold here. So home birth in itself, even though it's a place everyone pretty much had their babies until 70s, it's seen as by most people to be not as safe, that a hospital's safer, why would you ever do it at home? And I think there's really the sort of generation above us, but perhaps that when hospital came in as the safest place, even though actually there isn't any sort of research that really supports that, that suddenly home birth became this place that why would you ever do it? Everyone wanted to do it in a hospital. So there's that side of it. Actually, when you look at the most recent research around home birth, so the Lancet from 2020, there's a big study done on over 500,000 home births. The result of that study is that it's as safe for your baby to be born at home, but it's safer for you. So it's actually safer for you to have a home birth, and that's for anyone interested in like kind of science. You know, it's quite a lengthy science paper, but it makes a very, very interesting read.
What does that mean safer for the mother in terms of her?
So in a hospital, for example, you know, you are 75% more likely to get an infection than you would at home birth. You know, you are much more likely to have a postpartum hemorrhage. You are much more likely to have a cesarean. You are much more likely to have an instrumental birth. You are less likely to breastfeed. So there are lots of very interesting statistics around when you compare both of them. So I think there's that kind of assumption in society that home birth just isn't as safe, and you're some mad, crazy hippie if you're thinking
that's exactly the way people are looking at it.
And you get a lot of, you're brave. And I think, you know,
I get that a lot.
when you look at the statistics, you're probably sort of also thinking, you're perhaps brave to go into a hospital. And that's, you know, I think that's, as a doula, fully support both places of birth. And I think it's down to the individual to go to a place where you feel the most confident, you feel the safest. And for a lot of people that is a hospital, but for a lot of people that's home. And I think often when you have a home birth, you do wonder why you'd ever go into a hospital. You know, it's the only time we go to hospital when we're not ill. Because
as we're going on the journey of now having a home birth, it's just so exciting to know that I'll be in my own environment. I have my own kitchen, my own bed. Like the home that I spend most of my time in is where I'm going to birth my child will go from.
But when you think about what's needed for labour to progress, how it comes down to environment and hormones, and your home environment is the most conducive to labour progressing. You know, one of the hardest things, I think, and what can often slow and stall labour is when you have to leave your house to get to the hospital. That journey can be quite tough. So I think, exactly. Environment matters massively. So I think coming back to that original question, you've got one bit being controversial, the home birth, but actually then having a home birth after a cesarean.
That's it.
So when you've already had a cesarean, your second pregnancy in a Western medical environment is considered a higher risk. So you're a higher risk. You're immediately put on this high risk pathway. And the reason for that is that there's a slight increase in a uterine rupture when there's a scar on it. You know, it's already been opened up. So because of that, the NHS, you know, hospital environment, they want to put you on a continual fetal monitor. They want you on a labour ward, as that is seen as minimising that risk. But actually, when you look at the research and the studies and the evidence behind it, what is much more likely to guarantee you a vaginal birth after a cesarean is being in a home environment. So that would be your home or a birth centre, that kind of home from home environment. So it's illogical, and that's why we have such low VBAC rates in the UK, because you are automatically put onto this kind of high risk pathway. But yet actually, when you look at the statistics, when you look at the risk of that increased risk of your uterine rupture, it's less than 1%.
I think it was like, what, 0.5%?
Yeah, and actually someone who's never had a cesarean has a risk of uterine rupture. But that's never, like I've not had a cesarean and I was never told, but your uterus could rupture, it could rupture. So I think
push so much to the C-section community to instill them.
And continued fetal monitoring doesn't guarantee picking up on you know these things. So and actually what continual fetal monitoring does do is increase your risk of a cesarean.
And another way that we prepared for our HBAC is by moving hospitals.
Yeah, we didn't know we were going to be doing this.
This was a shock.
First conversation that we had with our doula, she just asked the question, why are you at the same hospital that you had your C-section at? And do they support you with your VBAC? Have you checked their policies?
Such a good question. That really caught us by surprise, and then that took us on another journey of really trying to understand what are the policies from our hospital, etc. And then we moved to a hospital that, you know, a lot of people are having their VBACs in within our area. So yeah, again, education.
And when we first met you, one of the key things that you mentioned was about aligning yourself with a good hospital. because we were with the same hospital that we had Jerry with, but you actually suggested we change our hospital.
That was
and why was that?
Yeah, because we talked about the possibility of a vaginal birth after cesarean, and I know a lot about the different hospitals in London, and I know that the hospital you were at originally are not supportive of that.
And the first thing you said was check their policy.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to them about their policy? I'm like, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And then when we then went to have the conversation, it's like, nope, you're going straight to the labour ward.
Yeah, computer says no.
But it was crazy that we didn't even think to ask that question.
And again, people don't know that actually it's possible to still be in a hospital, but to get yourself onto the birth centre. And I've worked with a lot of clients where that's happened, and you know, it takes quite unnecessary work to get there, and you're almost, you know, you're signing your life away. But it is possible. But even that, I think there's so much pushback on that. So when you said that, my immediate, and I obviously know where you live, and I know what the hospitals are around you. So my conclusion for that was actually, I think there's a better place for you, because it's really important that if you are stepping outside of guidelines, that you're doing it at a place that are supportive of that. And that's like, you know, there are some places, and we were talking about breech birth earlier, there are some places that are going to be much more supportive of a vaginal breech birth than others that are just a blanket absolute no. So I think particularly with the vaginal birth after cesarean, it's very important to be doing it at a place that are supportive of that aren't going to force you onto a labour ward, that take extra steps in the staff training to be able to support that, and are there working with you, not against you.
That's it. It feels like we're now in the, I don't know, we're flowing with a hospital that's on the same stream as us, which is just fantastic. Because you mentioned the home birth. Initially, we sort of pushed back. We thought, are we ready for it? Then we moved hospitals, and actually they were aligned saying, why don't you just go for a home birth? So it was just fantastic.
Which is unheard of.
Absolutely unheard of. But again, triggered another thought for us around.
But I think that, you know, because even though you sort of think home birth, I want a vagina, but you know, I'm stepping out of guidelines, there's still that, you know, it's so ingrained in us that the hospital's safer. So it still took the consultant midwife saying to you, why don't you have the home birth, for you to feel actually fully comfortable with that. And that's great that that consultant midwife, who I know, who is brilliant, it has, you know, given you that confidence to do that, because you don't get that in many places.
And they've done a lot of research around HBACs, VBACs. Just, you know, some hospitals have just not, they don't specialise in that, or they don't have a team.
It's just, it's kind of, they will facilitate it because legally they have to. But if you look at the VBAC stats in hospitals, nationally, internationally, if you've not had a vaginal birth before, if you have had a cesarean and you're going for vaginal birth after cesarean, it's around 70% chance that you should be able to have a vaginal birth after cesarean, 90% if you've had a vaginal birth before, yet most London hospitals are around 20-30% max for VBACs. And it's because they are focusing on putting you at high risk in a labour ward and doing all the things that actually prevent you from getting that VBAC.
Another way that we're preparing is also to inform me as the husband of what my role is on game day. What do I need to be doing in the moment? I need to know this. Like, I need to know what I'm stepping into on the day. I don't like surprises too much. I like to know.
But you did know first time round.
There was prep involved in that situation. Now this is home. I need to be ready. For me, as Anna's birth partner and her husband, what can I do to support her in the labour process? What's my role?
Your role, and this is the title that is bestowed on you, you are the guardian of oxytocin.
Okay.
So that's your, I call that like your Game of Thrones name. The guardian of oxytocin. So oxytocin being the main hormone that probably got you pregnant, kept your pregnancy, it's going to start your labour, is going to make your baby come, essentially. It's the main, like the star, you know, the front person of the band. And you, luckily, you can manipulate things to increase that hormone. So you are going to make sure the lighting is right, that the music is right, that the smells are right.
All the vibes.
Yes.
Not other things.
that Anna feels safe, that she feels private, that her birth wishes are being met. So you're supporting mentally, you're supporting physically with massage, touch, and you're supporting emotionally. So if she's ever saying, I can't do it, you're saying, yes, you can do it. You are doing it. You are doing it. And that's
I'm
that's
sure
your
you'll do
role.
that well.
Oh, yeah,
That
definitely.
bit's fine.
And the
And
good thing
obviously
about having a doula is that as the birth partner, you get to do that with reassurance and confidence, because you will have wobbles. You might think, is this normal? Is this okay? You know, I get a lot of, is this okay? Is this fine? So when you are portraying that confidence and that reassurance, you're going to mirror that. You're going to get that feeling from him, that vibe, and that's going to reflect in your own confidence and self.
You've got this, baby.
Oh, you're great,
Yeah.
You've already been making Anna go to yoga.
I know, you literally forced me out the door. Get out, get ready. I'll sort out our son. Another way that we prepared for our HBAC is by understanding the woman's body and understanding what is truly designed to do. That has been a game changer. Again, with our doula support, learning about, you know, how the body can move, how the baby navigates through the body, how you can handle labour. All of that has been really
I have
key.
been blown away by the non-verbal communication between the mother and the baby, and just, it's like, how does the baby know to it is crazy.
Yeah, and trusting myself and trusting my body, that has been key. Our doula has really helped us stay informed on, and then provided us with resources on how that is feasible. But yeah, that has been a key part of our journey, hasn't it, in terms of understanding.
This is a female pelvis, right?
Yep.
It's much wider than a man's pelvis. When you're thinking about it in terms of birth, in relation to birth, it's mainly made up of 4 main bones, 4 main joints, okay? So when you are upright, forward, have spontaneous movement, all of these joints, everything can move. You're going to get as much space as possible in the pelvis. If you're on your back, so you're semi-recumbent on a bed, this becomes rigid. So if you look here, you see the difference? You lose about 30% space in your pelvis. And at the point of birth, like this on your back, it's like pushing water up a slide.
I don't even like being on my back now.
In
my pregnancy, because the baby is like pressing on. It's just so uncomfortable.
Well, the reason that they tell you to lay on your side is that the vena cava, one of the main kind of nerves, is at the back. So that's, if you're kind of crushing that, it's less oxygen and less blood flow and everything to your baby. We're not thinking about bad. There's no such thing as a bad position, because babies get into all sorts of positions. But in a kind of optimal position, your baby's going to enter the pelvis, head down, spine sort of to the left.
Okay.
The widest part of your baby's head is front to back. The widest part of the pelvis is side to side. So that's why your baby enters kind of like that, ideally. Creating asymmetry in the body. You never know, obviously, where the baby is, but when your baby's here, like, the most space you're giving your baby there is if you are asymmetrical. You know, asymmetry in the pelvis creates a lot of space. Oh, I want to get labour going. I walk up and down the stairs, you know, go and walk on the curb. Essentially what you're doing there is creating asymmetry in the pelvis. So you create more space. So baby keeps coming down, coming down, coming down, coming down, coming down. Eventually, the baby is going to come under the pubic arch. And at that point, it's when your baby isn't going to bob back up again. So this is the point where your baby's going to start crowning.
Another way that we're preparing is by preparing my body. I'm someone who obviously works from home. And
You know what, the thing is, Anna is slim, and genetically, the bump is just bumping and nothing else has evolved. She hasn't put any weight, it's just the bump. So everyone is giving her all these compliments and stuff, and it's going to her head. The fact that she's not moving. She doesn't want to go for a walk, but this doula, I asked her the question, how important is walking? She said it's very important, so Anna's been walking. Another thing that she did was help Anna stretch and get in suitable positions.
Yep.
And that has been fantastic. And what else have we done? Based on that conversation, we've now enrolled my wife to pregnancy yoga twice a week.
I think it was just helpful to understand
What do
the
you need to understand?
importance of...
It's normal. It's like, it makes sense.
No,
You should know this. Someone shouldn't have to tell you this.
Yeah, okay, my love, thank you very much. But also during labour, it's really important to move your body in the right way. Understanding, you know, through where the pain is, where your baby is positioned and
Yeah.
how you can actually help to navigate and move the baby. We didn't realise that this was a thing, and we probably could have benefited from that in our first labour when I was feeling a lot of back pain, maybe indicating that the baby was back to back, and how we can actually help to move the baby's position during labour. But again, more information, more education on the things that I could do to help create
And we
the
do
birth that we
love
want.
some practical steps.
Yeah.
So just knowing what positions to move you
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
What instruments to use, natural instruments like the birthing ball during labour, the shower, all of these things. So yeah, it's been really informative and helpful.
If we are here or you're just here, you know,
This
just
is good.
adding some massage. You like me massage generally.
Yeah,
So
she does.
always bring in like softness. So
Babe, learn this one.
That one.
come and feel the sacrum. So when I say sacrum, most people do that.
Yeah.
So sacrum.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
That's it.
That's great. That was really good. You know, that would have helped last labour because
Yeah.
he was back to back, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if your baby's back to back, you tend to definitely want to be on all fours.
To be fair, you were in this position for Jerry. You were on the top of the bed.
Yeah, just leaning.
I mean, most people, because when you're in all fours, so I'll let me just come next to you. When you're in all fours, you are really grounded, so you feel quite safe, I think, quite protected. You're in control, and then what happens is the baby's in a hammock, so they've got more space. All of the pressure and weight comes off of your back, and then you can, you just sort of moving around. It can be quite helpful to help kind of rotate your baby. Or also if there was a delay in the second stage, so when you're pushing your baby out, again, this can be quite a useful technique, and it's called shaking the apples.
Ooh.
So go on all fours. Right, so I'm going to gather the sides, and I'm going to shake the apples.
I like this.
So it's quite good.
Oh, it feels nice, you know?
Yeah, it's really quite a nice release, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's a technique, and as I say, we might not need it, but sometimes I do it with my hands. Right, if I put my hands on So sometimes I do it with my hands, just because you don't always need to get that out, but it's just releasing everything. So any restriction in the pelvis, it can have an impact. So releasing the muscles, coming down the legs, it brings this softness and the release throughout the body. And when everything is released, the uterus is nice and
This is exactly what I needed with Jerry during the birth. The pain was all here. All here.
Okay, definitely. So that would have been really good for that. So, and as I say, you can do it in pregnancy, it's quite nice, and I'll have that with me.
Okay, fantastic.
So there's that.
So what do you want me to say when I want this one? Mexico?
Shake those apples.
Shake the apples.
Shake the apples. Shake those apples.
So Deku fam, we hope you enjoyed that video. Very different style to our usual video, but we just thought we'd bring our doula into the conversation to help us stay educated, to help us feel more confident, to help us, just feel actually excited for the birth. Aren't we really excited?
Because we've got more education, it's giving us more confidence.
Yeah.
We also have more resources and just knowing how to navigate ourselves whilst we're in that environment. So we're ready for game day.
Yeah, we're so ready. And we hope that this video has helped you feel better about decisions that you're going to make in the future. And yeah, we'll see you in our next video. Bye.